The police were joined by State Emergency Service, divers, dogs, horses, drones, choppers.
No way that this child has been taken. No, absolutely no way that there's anything suspicious.
The evidence that we have available to us is that Gus has wandered away from the property and somewhere onto the farm property, and we have not been able to locate him.
These are some of the best people you would ever find anywhere. They are the sort of people that you need as your neighbours because they are honest, reliable, trustworthy.
I just can't believe that that could happen, but anyway, it has, hasn't it?
I just don't get how he vanished like that.
A 4-year-old lad, they just don't disappear into thin air. They have to be somewhere.
Well, this one did. This one did disappear into thin air. Despite using every resource, no trace of Gus was found near the property. Not even, apparently, a scent. Not even shoe prints around that heap of sand where he was apparently last seen playing.
Despite 2 extensive searches in and around the 6,000 hectare property, almost no sign of the 4-year-old has been found.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. 60 Minutes Australia have provided a comprehensive recap of the last few weeks. But what was noteworthy was juxtaposing this insight.
Struck by the initial shock of losing their beautiful boy, Gus's family, who have been silent and incredibly private throughout the ordeal, lent on friend Bill Harbison.
Silent and shy and incredibly private, juxtaposing that with this.
The woman's actions, according to police, were not as they seemed.
The person had the gun for a legitimate purpose. They were dispatching a snake that was on their porch. There was no intent by the person having that firearm at that time to be threatening in any way.
What I found interesting with 60 Minutes coverage was how they underplayed Grandma's confrontation with the Daily Mail journalist. In the documentary, you barely hear the unnamed grandma bellowing at the reporter while a police officer is interviewed, justifying the incident and explaining that the shotgun wasn't being brandished at the journalist but at a snake that happened to appear at just that moment. But clearly the shotgun was being brandished at the journalist.
You're now about to see what happened when I came face to face with Josie Murray, Gus's transgender grandmother.
Who are you?
Pardon?
Who are you?
I'm with the media.
Out! You are trespassing. Get out!
I'm so sorry.
Get out! Are you?
In a narrative sense, if you're failing to accurately interpret or analyze something that you actually see on camera, you've got video footage of that. If you're unable to actually tell that story accurately, what chance do you have with this bigger, more complicated investigation? And it does seem like the police are simply just repeating what they are told, like kind of in a dumb sense. They simply told something, and so that then becomes the evidence that they have to work with. But you know, the real insight here, why this incident was so surprising, was because until we saw this and heard this, we assumed the family to be very shy and private, even sensitive in certain ways, which is why they got someone else to front up to the media to read their statement. This person.
I've been asked to read this statement on behalf of the family.
To reiterate, until we saw that incident, we'd been led to believe the family seemed to be very shy and private. But what this incident on that porch with the supposed snake proved was that there really was no problem with confidence or shyness after all, especially when dealing with the media. If it came to standing up for oneself and making oneself heard, at least one person on the property was well and truly capable of doing so. So why didn't they? Well, before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, someone has asked, where is the thanks button on the mobile phone? Well, here you can see it. It's in the heart-shaped button. If you haven't hit the thanks button before, please do. And let's get started. So another thing that the documentary revealed was, in the midst of showing literally hundreds of people stampeding through the property, military vehicles, motorbikes, divers, drones, friends of the family, even an Aboriginal tracker, the only family member we occasionally saw fleeting glimpses of was that grandma, often pointing, seemingly directing the investigators. Where was everyone else? They were completely out of sight. Where was the boy's mother, for example? Where was the other grandma, the person who had last seen him, and the one in whose custody Gusty was when he disappeared? And where was the boy's father and the little boy's brother? So, as comprehensive and professional as the documentary seemed to be, there's a big gaping hole in the center of it. Do you see that? No admission of the strange family dynamics behind the scenes, which no one could call either normal or stable. The boy's father, a musician, we eventually discovered, did not only not live on the property, but was not welcome at the property because of some issue with the grandma. As far as I could see, the boy's father wasn't mentioned whatsoever in the documentary. The documentary also fails to even acknowledge the other little boy in the story, Gus's 1-year-old sibling, Ronnie. As we've seen in the Anna Kepner case, family dynamics can be crucial to understanding why things can unravel within families, why there are sometimes tragic outcomes. That may or may not be as relevant here, but given the lack of evidence, it's interesting that investigative reporters would choose to discard what is known and instead spend quite a bit of time and attention villainizing the media and social media. Did they have something to do with Gus's disappearance?
But there are also quite a number of people who are less than helpful and offer their opinions regardless of what the facts say. And in those circumstances, they are not only unhelpful, they are hurtful.
Now, I'm not sure if it's rocket science, maybe it is, but in quite a few of the American cases we've covered over the years, when someone disappears with no trace, with no evidence, it's usually not because someone wandered off. Gannon Stork didn't wander off. J.J. Vallow wasn't just somewhere out there either. John Benet Ramsey wasn't somewhere else either. In the Chris Watts case, his 2 daughters didn't wander off. Instead, they were hidden. J.J. Vallow, hidden. Gannon Stork, hidden. John Benet Ramsey, hidden. In the Chris Watts case, the 2 children didn't wander off. They were disposed in oil tanks on a farm far away from the family home. In the Suzanne Morphew case, the Kelsey Bereth case, and the Jennifer Doulos case, in each and every one of these cases, it was suggested that these women had disappeared of their own accord, just as apparently Gus Lamont had disappeared of his own accord, wandered off. That they had wandered off and gone to live on the rest of their lives, apparently in secret, until one by one, Kelsey Bereth, Suzanne Morphew, Jennifer Doulos, were found dead, and not by accident, not because they vanished without a trace, but because those traces were washed away or thrown away. I don't know what happened to Gus, but at this point, the scenario that he wandered off and left no trace, no footprints, no scent, no clothing, and now no remains, doesn't strike me as the likeliest scenario, but increasingly as the unlikeliest. 60 Minutes Australia also has, as far as I'm aware, a dubious theory on the Madeleine McCann case, basically drinking the Kool-Aid for the past several years that Christian Bruckner abducted Madeleine, despite zero evidence linking Bruckner to that case, and despite Bruckner eventually not even being charged, not even being tried on these accusations. Their coverage of Wild Goose Chase Bruckner has literally earned them millions and millions of views. And about a year ago, 60 Minutes Australia also interviewed John Ramsey.
The first piece of evidence they got from the Colorado identification was DNA results, and they excluded in the report Patsy, myself, and Burke. The DNA didn't match.
So I think just as one needs to think more critically about some cases, we need to think more critically about this one. And critical thinking doesn't mean choosing a side or doing what's popular. It means letting the evidence guide you. And when there's no evidence, despite the passage of time and plenty of resources, one has to ask, is there an innocent explanation for no evidence and no traces?
A 4-year-old, they just don't disappear into thin air.
But this one did. This one has.
We know he's out there somewhere. We just need to find him.
To me, at the present moment, it's a mystery.
We are going to need to start thinking about this case in new ways, in better ways, in more critical ways. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.